Hi everyone, it's Franny.
This is Heidi with Heidi and Franny's Garage, and it is super cold out right now, and we have a very dirty 911 Turbo in our garage, and it really wants a bath.
So we're going to show you today a couple of methods you can use to clean your car in the winter. If it's super duper cold outside and you can't even get outside, I have something for that. And also if it's kind of nice out but it's still pretty cold out, I have a way to make it a little more comfortable and make it a lot easier to get your car clean in the winter. So that's up next on Heidi and Franny's Garage. So in the wintertime, sometimes it's just too darn cold to wash your car. It's literally like super freezing outside and below zero and stuff, and you wash your car, just be a big old ice ball. So how do you keep your car clean? You can see the car is still, there's all the schmutz all over it. The last thing you want to do is touch any of this dry. So there are several products out there that you can use to moisten the car first and lubricate all this to get it off first. But Adams makes a really wonderful waterless car wash that they use. It's also very good if you live in places that have a drought and water restrictions and things like that. It's also good for that as well. So the concept with this is that you just want to make it very wet. You got to get it very wet, and you're going to very lightly wipe off the dirt, and you're going to do this in a couple of stages. And we'll do just this part here just as an example, but pretty much the idea is you just get it nice and wet. Pretty much until you'll see it, all the dirt was nice and white, and now it's turned to kind of a darker brown. And so you just take your rag and very lightly, you only wipe in one direction. I like to wipe down, and you turn, see how bad that is? And you're going to turn your cloth frequently. And the idea is you're just going to get this off very carefully without grinding this stuff in. I'm using a very fluffy towel, in the hopes that getting this nice and wet, it will wick up into the little fibers here and keep the dirt off of the paint. So back to wetting it again. And once we've got this fairly clean, we'll keep turning our rag. This section here. You can see it's nice and clean now. The problem with this is that this is pretty much a stopgap. If it's really super duper cold outside, this is pretty much your only option. But you're going to end up running through a decent amount of product, and you can buy these things in bulk in large quantities like gallons and stuff, and so maybe that's the way to go. You end up running through a lot of towels, of course, because you're going to get awfully dirty, and I've done this many times. I think it's better to have a clean car and maybe have the slightest little chance that you're going to maybe scratch a little bit than it is to leave this stuff on the car for a long period of time. I think this is a better solution than just leaving the dirt all over your car, because you'll rub up against it and that will scratch it. It's filled full of salt, and so it's really bad to have it on the car. And so now we've cleaned the car, and it could be snowing outside and we have a nice clean car. So this is a great option. But today, it's about 45 degrees outside, and there might be a lot of snow outside, but it's still warm enough that we can actually wash the car. So instead of using up all of my waterless car wash stuff, I'm going to go ahead and back out the car. I'll show you a few tips and tricks that I have for washing the car in cold weather like this. Okay everybody, this is Franny Top Tip number 2. This guy right here, a hot and cold tappet on the outside of your house. This is great. You can mix the temperature and get it just so for your bucket and for your power washer. You don't want it too awfully hot because you could damage your power washer, and that would be bad. But you want it probably around 120 degrees to get the salt and the road grime off your car. And this one is a nice one. It's got backflow prevention on it, and also is self-draining as well, so it won't freeze in the winter. So hot and cold tappet on the outside of the house. Franny Top Tip number 2. So there's a couple of different brands of this wheel cleaner stuff. It's the stuff that turns colors when it finds stuff. It cleans off the metallic-y bits that the brakes throw off. Now these are ceramic brakes, so you're not going to find a lot of that anyways, but I still like to go ahead and hit them. It keeps the wheels like super clean. It's really nice. Adam has a couple of these little hose slider guides that you can slide under the front wheel so that when you drag your hoses around your car, they don't get stuck under the wheel. So I love these things. They're awesome. And they just go under there like that. Just like that, so you can move the hose around. This particular power washer that I've got has removable nozzles on it. And you push in and twist these guys and pull them out like that. So the foam cannon I got, it's specific to my particular power washer. There's a lot of different types of power washers out there, so if you're going to buy a foam cannon, make sure it fits your particular power washer. Okay, I think that's it. So here we go, we'll go ahead and foam the car. Isn't that cool? If we used to have a gray car, now we have a white car. So that's a little crazy, huh? Look at that, it's a completely white car. So the jury's kind of out on whether these things actually do anything or not. The idea is that you completely coat the car, that the dirt particles will then float up to the through surface tension up to the top of the bubbles and lift them up off the surface. But a lot of people say that, well, I foamed my entire car and then went ahead and sprayed it and it's still dirty. A lot of the dirt, especially here, we have a very, very fine clay in our dirt, so it gets all over everything, and the only way to get it off is to actually physically remove it with a big microfiber thing. So that's next. We'll let this sit for a little bit. I'll go ahead and fill up my buckets. Okay, everybody, this is Franny Top Tip number 3. This is a whole house water filter. It's put out by 3M. It's called an Aqua Pure. It's a really neat device. It has great flow and great rejection. I believe it's a 10 micron filter. So we have this hooked up to the entire house, which includes the outdoor spigots. And it's made a huge difference. So the idea is that it will take out chlorine, chloramine, let's see what else, calcium deposits, rust, that sort of thing. And keeps your water clean so that when you wash and rinse your car, you don't have a chance of getting water spots on it. So this is we just got a replacement canister for it. So this is the replacement canister for this thing. They're a little expensive. They're about $150 and they last almost a year. But I think it's totally worth it because the whole house is just wonderful because of this, all the water in the house. So this is Franny Top Tip number 3. Okay, you don't need too awfully much, just enough. That in there. Other thing we've got in our buckets are grit guards. So you can see the red grit guard down there, and this is a black rinsing grit guard with a little 45-degree guy on it. They're great. So you soap up in the soap bucket, do your car, bring it back, you scrub it in the rinse bucket, and then you go back into the wash bucket. So that's the idea, at least. If you want to get lots and lots of suds in your bucket, a great way to do it is to use your power washer. Sudsy. That'll go ahead and knock the most of the dirt off, and that wheel cleaner works really well. I'll probably hit them again with the brush as I go through the car, but for now that'll get that stuff off. You're really not supposed to leave it on too awfully long because it really is pretty aggressive, that cleaner. So, and you don't want to forget to get up underneath the wheel wells as well, because those have to be cleaned too. Okay, that does it for a first pass on the wheels. Remember, we're not doing a concours wash. We're not going to, this isn't for concours. This is just to knock off the worst, get all the salt off the car, and get us prepared for probably the next snowstorm, but at least the car will be clean in between. So next step is going to be to wash the car. I'm not going to soap up the roof anymore, the convertible roof any more than we've done, but I will go ahead and hit the paint a bit. I've got one of these big, huge, green, fluffy cleaning mitts here. It's got big, long, thick little dreads on it here, which are hopefully, the idea is it will wick up the dirt into these fibers here. Anything big and fluffy will work really well. What you don't want to use and ever want to use on your car is a chamois. There's no place for the dirt to go. So if you use a chamois on it, you're just grinding the dirt across the surface.
Yeah.
You really want something like this that will pull it up off the surface for you. So when you've gone through and you've kind of done a bit of the car, and you're kind of out of suds and things, then you take your mitt and you rub it on your grit guard here in your clean water bucket, and then you go back to your soapy bucket. Another important thing is to work from the top down. That seems kind of obvious, but it's also for, besides the obvious reason of gravity, the bottom part of the car is probably a bit dirtier than the top part of the car. So we'll come back and we'll do the wheels and we'll do the undercarriage of the car last.
Well, why couldn't you just go to a drive-through?
Well, that's a great question. If you go to a car wash that's a manual car wash, where you do it yourself, the wand is awesome. The wand is great. It will go ahead and clean your car really well. That foaming brush that they always have, don't get that anywhere near your car, because if you look in those things, they usually are filled full of dirt and crap and stuff, because the somebody brought their big huge monstrous truck in and they went underneath the underside and rocks fell down, and that's all still in those bristles. Don't ever use those things. Oh my god, they're horrible. Unless you're going to use them on the underside of your RV, and that works. As far as the other car washes go, the touchless car washes probably don't produce much damage at all to the car, which is great, but they also are probably going to leave some of that fine silt left on your car. I find that, at least in Colorado, I cannot get that off without a mitt and actually going at it physically. It just won't come off. But make sure that you put some product on your car when you get home, because you really have to have a layer of protection so that you'll have the dirt sitting on top of the layer of protection and not sitting directly on the paint. Paint's fairly porous. It will actually eat into the paint.
I've heard that those car washes are fine, but not so good if you have a convertible as well.
Right, so another good point. They're a little rough on convertible roofs. You always want to be careful. You just don't want to just scrub away on your top. That's just bad for it. But it does get a lot of dirt in it. Well, there's a couple of different things you can use on your top. There's something called Raggtopp, which is very good. It's an aerosol. And then there's 303 Protectant, which you could use on like outdoor furniture and all sorts of things. And that's what we use, because you can get it in a liquid jug, and then I'll go at it with a foam brush. And I can get better coverage than I can with an aerosol. Okay, so next step is going to be to rinse the car. You can see it's still covered in suds, and that's fine. It's totally fine for it to be covered in suds. But once we do remove all the soap from the car, we then have to make sure that we dry it very quickly, because water spots are the enemy of paint. So we have a bunch of different rags, and then these guys, these waffle towels, are really wonderful for drying the car. And I also have a big purple towel specifically for drying the car. It's a GYEON towel. It's a really, really nice towel. So I'm going to go ahead and power wash the underside of the car as well, and that will knock off any of that horrible salt and mag chloride that's been underneath the car. So we'll do the top, and then we'll do the bottom, and then we'll go back and do a final rinse on the whole thing. Then we'll get to drying. Now we got our car all wet and clear. We've got to get it dry. That's the next step. So we've got our towels all ready. We've got one of these incredibly awesome drying towels. So if you don't want to induce a bunch of scratches, you can literally just drag it across like this. And you can see it's almost completely dried the car. These things are so thirsty, these rags. They can almost dry the car immediately. Work really well. So if you really want to be completely crazy, the sun is over here, so this side of the car is going to dry first. So we probably want to get to this side before we do the part that's in the shade. And of course, most worried about paint. We'll worry about the rest of the glass and all that later. You don't want to use a terry cloth towel. These are microfiber towels. Terry cloth towels are too rough and will scratch your paint. So for the top, it's the same as the paint. Just drag it across the top. If you've got that protectant on it, you'll see the water will bead up just like it does on paint. And when you drag this rag across it, it's almost completely dry.
It's like magic.
It is kind of neat. It also won't freeze. So if it's super duper cold outside, it'll keep it from freezing, which freezing bad for the fabric. So any last little bit of dampness will just dry on its own in the sun, which is great. But we know, since we've just used this on the top, this one's done. Okay, so at this point the car is all dry and looks great. We're pretty much done. I could pull the car in. Remember, this is a winter wash, so I'm not going to go crazy with anything. I could pull it back into the garage and be completely happy with it at this point. But I do want to show you one other thing that's really kind of cool. Adam has a really neat product that I'm going to go ahead and get the front of the car wet again. But you use it actually when you're drying. And it's a spray-on like a glaze that sets up when it hits water. So let me go ahead and get the front wet again, and I'll use my little rag and I'll show you how that works. So this is Adam's H2O Guard and Gloss, and it sets up when it hits water. So it separates a bit, so shake it up a bit before you use it. But it's very simple. Just spray it on the nice wet car. And then dry normally as you would. But it'll give you a lot of extra shine on the car. It looks great. And a little bit of protection as well. So if you don't have time to do a full wax job and it's too cold and you don't want to spend some time in the garage and you're just washing your car, take a look at that. Isn't that something? It's really, really nice.
Smells good too.
Yeah, all these products really smell good. You don't need too much. If you add too much, it'll end up kind of clogging up and getting a little thick. But and the other thing is you can't really use it every time. You don't really need to. Maybe every third time you wash the car or something like that. But the nice thing is that you save a step. You had to dry the car anyways, so you just spray a little of this little H2O Guard Love on here, and voila, you get a beautiful shine and a nice glaze and a little bit of protection on the car. Well, that concludes this episode on how to wash your car in the winter. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give us a thumbs up, and if you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them down below.
And if you have any other ideas or things that you want to see us to do in the future, please let us know. And also, if you haven't subscribed and you did like our show, go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell if you want to be notified. In the meantime, thanks for joining us today and making it to the end of this video. Thanks again.
Safe travels.
Bye.